Hello, it's Tom from BlackToad Studio and we're here for another battle report. Today we'll be getting the Orks out for a bit of a run, which is the first time since we've had the new codex drop. So bear with me if any rules go a little bit astray. Hopefully everything should be alright though. So it's a very simple game today. We're having 1,000 points. Going to be quite a classic matchup. But to start with, here is my 1,000 points of Orks. So leading the force here we have a Warboss. He has a Power Claw. I've given him the Might is Right trait, and the clan culture I'll be using is Goths. He's also got the lucky stick, so obviously he gets +1 strength and attacks, plus the stick allows certain rerolls within 6 inches for characters and himself. Joining him on the right there is a mech from the index, because obviously they don't have it's a big mech from the index, so he's just that with a custom Mega Blaster on there. And in an elite choice next to them there is a Pain Boy with no upgrades on him, except for he's got the Kill Saw. Troops choices, so we've gone for a nice steady battalion here. We have 3 squads of Ork boys, all exactly the same bar one boss knob, which is the one over here, and he's going to be carrying a big chopper as opposed to a power claw. There's 21 boys in each, all with choppers and sluggers, and there's 2 big shooters in each squad, so basically all exactly the same here across the 3 here. And this one on the right here, or one of them when I put them on the board, which I'll say is going to be a Scar Boys unit, which basically gives them strength 5 as opposed to strength 4 for that one squad. And obviously they can't mob up with anything other than a same style of unit. So that's obviously taking me down to 7 command points from my 8. And at the back here we have 3 Death Dreads. They're all armed as shown, but just in case there's any confusion, the left one there has all the kill saws / dread claws it can carry. The middle one has 2 Dread Claws and a rocket launcher and flamer or scorcher. And the right here is just a standard loadout, so 2 big shooters and 2 Dread Claws. So that is my 1,000 points of Orks. And here is 1,000 points of Crimson Fists. This is the first on the channel. My fiancée Victoria is going to be playing me today, so it should be quite an interesting game. She's quite new to the hobby, but this is her fully painted 1,000 point army in front of you here. But basically, quite a nice little setup here. So we have Kantor at the back, obviously leading this here with all his Crimson Fist goodies. And then we have a Librarian in Terminator armour, 1 Lieutenant. And then troop choice-wise, we've got 3 sets of Tactical Marines. And they're all very similar. So there's a rocket launcher in all 3 of them. And there's basically a flamer. And also I think 1 less flamer at the front one here, because there's just squeeze the points, and there's 2 less Marines in that front squad there. Each sergeant at the back here has a power sword, and the front one here has a power fist. And then bringing up some elite goodness, we have some aggressors, standard Boltstorm gauntlets and grenade launcher, or Boltstorm grenade launchers. That's pretty nice. And then just to cap off the list, there is a Razorback here, stock, so with the heavy bolter on top, but there is also a Hunter Killer missile hiding in there as well. And the psychic powers that have been chosen here are Smite, Might of Heroes, and Fury of the Ancients. So let's see what happens when we go over to the game and deployment. Okay, welcome back, and here is the deployment and mission. So rolling for deployment, we got the hammer and anvil, so long, short edges each end of the board. And obviously Crimson Fists are up this end, and Orks are down this end. The mission we are doing today is Dominate and Destroy, which is quite a simple premise. Every single objective on the board is worth 1 point at the end of your turn. So we've got 1 here, 1 here. There's also 1 hiding back in that corner there. We have 1 in the middle over there. We have 1 here, and 1 in the middle of those boys over there. So, and the other way you can score points is for every unit you kill, that gets another point for you that turn as well. And then of course we have our standard affair of Slay the Warlord and First Blood. So, at the moment we've rolled off, and the Orks are going to be going first. However, if Vicky can seize on a 6, which she's going to try and do here, which she has definitely not done, got the complete opposite. So, that is Orks going first. So in a minute, we'll be right back with Orks turn 1. However, just to clear up any confusion in a minute, my Scarboy unit I chose is the one in front of the Warlord here. So they are strength 5. I'll try and keep that pointed out during the battle. So back in a minute with Orks turn 1. Okay, so as turn 1 movement for the Orks ends. As you can see here, the Ork horde has made its move through the streets. I've ran absolutely everything because I want to, or advanced it I should say, because I want to get it up the field as quickly as possible. However, I have left the rear units here in touch distance of each of these particular objectives here, because at the end of my turn, which will be happening in a minute, means that I get to score a point for those two already. And I felt, as I'm probably going to leave these behind, I may as well get 1 point out of them at the start of the game. So that is actually the end of Ork's turn. So we'll now see what happens in the Crimson Fists turn 1. Okay, so as turn 1 movement for the Crimson Fist ends, as you can see here, the aggressors have actually made an advance run here. So obviously they do have assault weapons, so they're going to be able to shoot them in a minute. And Kantor's just come into range to obviously help them out a bit, along with this tactical squad that's also moved up towards the objective, with the Librarian and the Lieutenant over there. Nothing else has moved, so that is everything for the Crimson Fist movement in turn 1. We'll now move on to Psychic and Shooting. Okay, so at the end of the Crimson Fist, turn 1 Psychic and Shooting. Psychically, the tank over there was buffed with Might of Hero, so he's an extra toughness and strength. Obviously, toughness is probably more the important thing there. Over here, the aggressors, and basically any gun that was in range over here, shot into the first mob. Now, I actually lost all but 3. However, using my morale from the rear unit there, which was still in range of which was 21, I failed my leadership on a 6, but still left me with 1. So it was pretty good shooting over there. However, hopefully there might be some special stratagems played next turn to see if these guys might come back in a minute. We shall see. Anyway, that is the end of the Crimson Fist turn because there was no assault. So I think we've got 1 objective there scored, another objective over there scored. Didn't quite get the unit killed. So I think that's 2 objectives for the Crimson Fists. And we'll now head on to Orks turn 2. Okay, so that's the end of Ork's movement in turn 2. Over on this side of the board, we had everything move up on this left flank. Did another advance run, basically. Have tentatively left 1 Ork back here just to try and guarantee at least 1 extra point this turn, because I wasn't really any close to do anything anyway. All of the Death Dread's got a good run, getting quite close. Hopefully next turn they can start to do something if they don't get blown up. Over here, this Ork mob did try to make a really ambitious run to try and get in range of the aggressors. For a charge, because obviously with the Warboss there they can advance and charge, but however they only managed to get a 1-inch advance even with the re-roll from a command point. Not brilliant. Over here, now that mob squad that got almost destroyed last time, I've used Unstoppable Green Tide and they have now come back on here. So that basically allows them to come back at full strength, 6 inches from any board edge and 9 inches away from the enemy. So that is smack on for hopefully an ambitious charge there. If the Overwatch doesn't hurt me beyond belief. So that's the end of the Orks movement. We'll see if we've got anything shooting wise to do, and we're back in a minute. Okay, so as the Orks open fire with their very unreliable weaponry, this mob here shot any sluggers that are in range, and over here the big shooters that could fire as their assault also fired into here along with the Warboss's a slugger, and basically we took 1 wound off in the end. However, we almost killed it, but there was a re-roll done and it saved it. So one of those aggressors is on 1 wound, and we're back in a minute with the assault. Okay, so as the Orks entered into their assault phase, not the best assault phase. Over here, these guys made the first initial charge into the aggressors here. They did lose 7 of their number and also failed to make the charge even with a re-roll. And then the Warboss thought, you know what, he's a bit crazy, he's going to have a crack at it. And he survived the Overwatch by taking 2 wounds and then failed the charge by 1 inch even with a re-roll, which is a bit frustrating because he's now out in the open. However, that is the way things go, and it was quite a big risk anyway, but we'll see what happens as we move on into the Crimson Fists turn 2. Points wise, I've scored 1 point at the back there for holding that objective. So over to Crimson Fists in turn 2. Okay, so the Crimson Fists kick off their movement phase with a bit of a move and a shuffle over here, getting more guns into the bear over here. The aggressors elected to stay still so they can fire twice. Obviously, this is currently the nearest mob over here. Obviously, if they went forward, they could have possibly chosen the Warboss, but we won't know now. Over here, the Razorback has made a little move that way. I don't know whether it wanted to get closer or not, but we'll soon find out. So yeah, that's the movement phase. Let's head on into the psychic and shooting phases. Okay, so as turn 2 psychic and shooting for Crimson Fists comes to an end, over here the only psychic power that went off was Might of Heroes, which has been cast onto the sergeant of the aggressor squad, and then essentially a load of shots started to rain in from over here. This squad up here, this squad here, and also the Razorback here shot into this leading Death Dread and has taken it down to 3 wounds. Not bad going. And then over this side, the aggressors which elected to stay still fired twice into the mob that was over here, and it completely wiped them out. And then obviously that opened up a lot of extra shots towards the Warboss. Luckily, after the Warboss had been shot, he managed to save. However, even more lucky, the Grot Pain Boy, it's not a Grot Pain Boy, that's right, the Pain Boy was the only thing in range, was the nearest unit, I should say, in range on this side, which meant that he took the brunt of the fire, but sadly he died. So that is now the end of the Crimson Fist turn. I don't think you've got any assaults, have you? No? No assaults at all, so we're going to head on into Orks turn 3 shortly. However, score points wise, obviously Vicky managed to get an additional 2 kills during that thing there, so she got 2 off the bat, so she's on 4 at the moment, plus this one here, which is 5, and this one here, which is 6. That puts you onto 6 victory points at the moment. And we'll now head on into Orks turn 3. Okay, so at the end of turn 3 movement for Orks, and the tide is closing in. Had a massive run from this boy squad here, getting a 6 on the run, so they're now poised to make a fairly easy charge in this area. However, easy would be not quite the word I would use, maybe because of the amount of shots that come from the aggressors, but maybe some assault weapons can do some damage. Moving over to the other side of the board, a general move up here. The boy squad has decided to commit to coming forward now, so it's left the objective way behind with a big run again as well. All the Death Dreads making moves across to various areas. No running here, just moving forward 6s, so they've got options to charge in a minute and fire their weapons. Also, the other thing to note is the big mech here managed to put 2 wounds back onto this front Death Dread here, so that's working quite nicely to keep them alive. So that is the end of movement. We'll be back in a minute with the shooting. So at the end of the Orc shooting phase, nothing really done there. All the saves were done for the aggressors when I got a couple of wounds in there, and also the same for the Razorback over there. So we're now going to head straight on into the assault phase and see if we can dish out some pain. So at the end of turn 3 for Orks, combat phase has just been wrapped up. Over here, the Predator has been left on, I think it was 4 wounds or 3 wounds. It's 4 wounds there, yeah, it's fine. And that was quite a good little bit of combat from the Dread there. This Dread piled in here, and in conjunction with the squad over there, and also the aggressors obviously died, and we took, I think, 3 guys off this tactical squad, so that's pretty good as well. Starting to make our way through there. At least we're in combat now, so hopefully have a chance at turning the table a little bit, although there's still quite a few guns on the table, so I'll have to see what happens in a minute. So at the end of that turn, the Orks have scored 1 for this point here, but also they got 1 point for killing the aggressors as well, so that's 2 points in total. They aren't actually in range of any other objectives at the moment because the troops here are contesting that one there. So that was 2 points for the Orks at the end of my turn. We'll now move on to Crimson Fists, turn 3. Okay, so as the Crimson Fists end their movement in turn 3, over here the squad that was embroiled in combat has backed off slightly, keeping a bit of a wall between them and the units at the back here. And obviously this whole unit has come off the platform here down here to make sure they can maximise their shooting at the various targets in this area. Over on the other side of the battlefield, the Razorback has reversed out of combat from the Death Dread to try and obviously get away from it and also open up it to some shooting from possibly the guys up on that ruin there. So that's all the movement done. We'll now head on to the Crimson Fist turn 3 psychic and shooting. Okay, so as the Crimson Fists end their psychic and shooting, down here very successful shooting and psychic for them. The Librarian pumped in Smite and Fury of the Ancients, taking out pretty much the majority of what's gone from there now. but that was then followed up by some bolter shots from the Librarian and also Kantor, so it's down to 4 there. I think the leadership is looking highly unlikely because it's not near enough anything, unless we might do a special bit of a Warboss protection in a minute. Also, you can see here missing is the Death Dread. It took a rocket launcher to the face and took 6 wounds, so pretty good going there. Not much I could do about that. On the other side, however, nothing really changed, as the Death Dread over here did take 1 wound, but that was just from actually I think mainly bolter fire, because the missile missed. So that is everything over here. Head on into the combat phase. Okay, so there wasn't any charge in the end, so I did my morale, and unfortunately this squad died. I wasn't quite in range to do the breaking heads rule, sadly. I need to be in 3 inches, so that didn't help me. So at the end of that round, the Crimson Fists have scored another point for killing a unit. Actually 2 points killing it, because they got this one and the Death Dread, and they also hold that point and that point. So a total of 4 more points for them at the end of that turn. But we're now going to head on to Orks turn 4 and see if they can bring round a victory or not. Okay, so at the start of Orks turn 4, what we've had to do here is, in my opinion, a bit of a do or die here. We're going to have to try and go in and kill some units to make some ground up, because holding the objectives isn't really going to score enough points with the amount of gunfire that's going to come in next turn. So this boys squad has advanced up to here. I had to re-roll to get them a 10-inch movement, which is just to put them into a good stead here to get into combat. The Warboss has joined them by walking up to there. This Death Dread turns attention over here. I'm also just going to roll for the Big Mech's D3 recovery. So he's going to get back 1 wound, so he's off on 5. There we go. And then over here, this Death Dread has advanced on the wounded Razorback. Hopefully going to take that. That should hopefully be an easy point there. I'm hoping to at least wipe out maybe 1 of the tactical squads here, maybe 2 of them, because I do have access to get to them, but there's a lot of flamers in there, which is probably not going to be too pretty for the Orks, but obviously we could start with the Death Dread here to try and minimise the number of hits he gets. So, back in a minute with some shooting and combat. So at the end of the shooting phase there for Orks in turn 4, we managed to take out the 4 Marines from the front squad there, which is not bad, and unfortunately didn't do any damage to this vehicle here, but hopefully in combat we can make up for that. So back in a minute with the combat. Okay, so as the carnage dies down in the middle here, it was pretty good combat for the Orks in this particular phase. So the Warboss charged the Lieutenant, managed to kill him outright. Also, the mob in the middle here managed to take out the lone sergeant who was remaining from the squad at the front, but he also overspilled into the squad that was over, as a part of that squad that was here, so killed all 3 of them, and then basically whittled down that squad at the back there to 2. However, obviously Kantor and the Librarian are still sitting here. Over there, the Death Dread whiffed all his attacks, so he didn't actually do anything at all, which is a bit of a shame. However, it did get me, so that got me 2 points there, and as I am holding this objective here, that gives me a 3rd one, so that puts me on to 8 now. So, that's the end of Orks turn 4. We'll now see what the Crimson Fists can do in their turn 4. Okay, so as we focus back on this part of the board again for the Crimson Fist movement phase, Kantor has moved back, says Librarian, and also the squad that was in combat has backed out, obviously, because that means they can shoot at a few things here themselves. Over there, the Razorback has moved backwards as well, giving the units in the ruins a good chance at shooting them. So, we're now going to head on into the psychic and shooting phase and see what the Crimson Fist can do damage-wise. Probably quite a bit, I have a suspicion. Okay, so as the shooting phase dies down, the Crimson Fists have exacted a small toll on this squad here, taking, I think it was 3 boys out in the total. But also, unfortunately, this Death Dread got rocket launched from up here, taking off its last 2 remaining wounds. So we only have the 1 Death Dread left now, looking a bit lonely, and it's looking a bit sparse on the ground for both forces at the moment. So let's head on and see what happens in the combat phase. So yet again, as we come back into this point of the board, turn 4 for Crimson Fist in their assault phase, and Kantor has absolutely beaten the fungus out of the Warboss. So he is dead. So that actually gave 2 points over. So that because basically 1 point for Slay the Warlord, but 1 point for killing a unit as well. Obviously, he's got a few more people to whack through there, but we'll see what happens in the next turn, obviously. However, as a point of for extra points, the only other point they've got is the one at the back there, so it's an extra point at the end for them for holding that point at the back. So that is the end of Crimson Fist's turn 4. We're going to go into Orcs turn 5. It will be the final turn because we decided to cap it at 5 regardless. So we're back in a minute with Orcs turn 5. Okay, so Orcs turn 5, and over here the big mech has made a massive run for this objective over here, just getting away from the backfield here. The Death Dread that's here stays still because he just needs to go towards this anyway. And then in the middle here, the Orcs have made a push through towards the Librarian to give them as many charge options and shooting options as possible, because obviously what we want to try and do here is try and kill as many units as possible in this round to get points, but also try and hold that objective for maximum number of points. So in a minute, we're back with some shooting and see if the Orcs can maybe whittle down a couple of units. Okay, so here we are again in the middle. The Orc boys all shot their weapons at the remaining 2 squad members over here, managed to kill them. And also over there, we took 1 more wound off the Razorback. So that got me 1 more point there. We're now going to head on to the combat phase, and I think Kantor is in for a little shock with a number of choppers, so we'll see what happens. Okay, so at the end of turn 5 for the Orcs, pretty good turn to be honest. Over here, the Orcs crashed into Kantor and managed to kill him. It was actually just the Nob that did it in the end, because he managed to do 2 damage apiece with his chopper, and Kantor only saved 1 of them out of the 3 injuries he did, so it did 6 wounds to him just off that, which was pretty good going. They obviously then consolidated onto that 4. Well, they were already on there anyway, didn't really need to consolidate, and then the remainder consolidated in towards the Librarian. And then over here, the Death Dread managed to destroy the Razorback, which got another point. So actually doing those 2 things got me 2 points for killing Kantor, because that was Slay the Warlord, and also 1 point for killing a unit. Got killing a unit for that over there, and then we got 2 additional points for getting this one here and this one here. So that puts me on 14 points, and I think Vicky's also on 14 points. So unless something horrendous happens in the last turn, it should end up 15-14 possibly. But we'll see what happens with the Crimson Fists in turn 5. Okay, so as the Crimson Fists end their movement phase, down here you can see how much they hate each other, because the Librarian couldn't possibly stay in combat with them to die. I know that's kind of in my interest, sadly. But we'll now move on into the psychic and shooting phases and see if any more units can be dropped from the Orcs. Okay, so at the end of the Crimson Fist turn, because we managed to just whiffle through that pretty quickly because there's not a lot off on the board, essentially the Librarian did try some psychic powers, but actually managed damaging himself down to 3 wounds due to perils. Over this side, all these guys shot into the remaining Death Dread, but only left it on basically 2 wounds, so nothing actually happened there. There was nothing else that could be done by them, so that basically left them to end the turn and scoring 1 additional point. We'll be right back with a little wrap up. Okay, so as the dust settles on the battlefield, the final scores were 15 to the Crimson Fists and 14 to the Orcs. That was a pretty damn close game in my opinion. Actually, it was really good fun to play through. Quite a lot of interesting things with the Orcs. I felt they actually did reasonably well, to be honest, considering the amount of firepower that they were up against. And I think, do you have good fun there, Vicky?
Yeah, it's a great game.
Good game, good. Any favourite unit?
It's got to be my aggressors. Points value, I got a lot out of them.
Yeah, it's true. You managed to kill basically 2 boy squads, well, over and over, and then they managed to sort of whittle down a couple other ones. And I think my favourite units for this match are definitely going to be my Death Dreads, because they just kept going really for quite a long time, and they were annoying to kill, but they eventually did what they needed to do, which was take out the vehicle over here and sort of just cause a little bit of trouble, while the boys ran around trying to chop up the remaining forces. However, it was such a close game. It felt like I just got that extra point to get that draw, but never mind. So that is everything for today. This is Tom from BlackToad Studio, and we'll see you soon.